Over the past 5 years at my YouTube agency, I've scripted more than 1,250 YouTube videos for over 50 business owners. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to give you the exact script framework that's generated millions in revenue for my clients. Now, if you're like most business owners I work with, you're probably frustrated with YouTube right now. You're putting in the effort, you're creating content, but you're getting maybe a few hundred views and barely any leads. You watch other creators in your space getting thousands of views and you're thinking, what am I missing? Why isn't this working for me? What makes this different from every other YouTube tutorial you've watched is this. I took literally all of our best and worst performing video scripts. We're talking about scripts that generated millions versus scripts that completely flopped. And I fed them into AI to analyze exactly what separates success from failure. And what I discovered were 3 critical insights that will completely change how you think about YouTube content. And once I applied these insights, we saw a client of ours, an accountant, go from $10,000 per month to $290,000 per month with only 44,000 subscribers. He now generates an average of 140 book calls from YouTube every single month. Each confirmed client is worth $3,000 in the first year alone. We have a property buyer's agent with only 5,000 subscribers who generates 30 to 40 leads worth about $15,000 to $20,000 each when they close. And we have a mortgage broker who had to stop making videos after his 5th video because one of them got 400,000 views and he literally couldn't handle the lead flow. We also helped a learning expert grow from just under 100,000 subscribers to 1.5 million followers using the exact insights I'm about to share with you that now results in 15,000 to 18,000 leads every month for his coaching business. And these are just some of the clients we've managed to generate leads and signups to their services with the very first video that we scripted for them, despite years of no luck doing their own YouTube channels. So everything I'm about to teach you today is actually based on first principles. Once you understand these core principles, you'll start noticing that every expert who teaches their framework or formula is simply following these same fundamentals. So let's dive into what actually works and, more importantly, what's killing your videos right now. So insight number 1 from our analysis was the biggest shift that's happened in the last 3 years, and most business owners haven't caught on yet. 5 years ago, when I began working with clients, we could achieve success with purely informational content. That accounting client I told you about, we'd create videos like 5 tax deductions you're missing or how to reduce your business tax. And it worked brilliantly. We were getting thousands of views per video. We were generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue into his pipeline. But 3 years in, things started to slow down. TikTok joined the market and suddenly everyone was creating short form content. Instagram became video first and then AI exploded onto the scene. Competition started to rise exponentially and everyone began doing video marketing. Now remember, 5 years ago, it was basically just Gary Vee and a handful of others. But suddenly, everyone was now a content creator. And people also became professional consumers. And what I mean by that is we've become incredibly good at differentiating between high quality and low quality content. We know when we're being sold to, especially when it's disguised as value. And we as consumers have developed sophisticated filters for what's worth our time and what isn't. So if you think about it like this, imagine you're the only restaurant in a small town. And people think your food is amazing because they have nothing to compare it with. But then suddenly, 50 new restaurants open up. Now, people start sampling them all. They're comparing quality, service, and value. And you can no longer get away with your average food just because you were the only one in town. And you need to improve, innovate, or outcompete. Otherwise, you don't survive. And that's exactly what's happening with content marketing. What was considered high quality informational content 3 years ago is now just noise. Your audience is seeing the 5 tax deductions you're missing 100 times. They can ask ChatGPT any question and get an answer in seconds. In other words, information has become a commodity. So we had to make a fundamental shift. Instead of just sharing information, we started sharing transformation through stories. And there was actually a study done at Stanford University in 1969 where students were tested on their ability to memorize a list of 12 words. Now, half the group studied the list for 2 minutes. The other half was instructed to create a story that contained all the words. And when tested on recall, 93% of students who had created a story remembered the words, while only 13% of those who simply tried to memorize the list could. And so building a story around the list made it around 7 times as memorable. What this means is that people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. When you tell someone how to reduce their tax bill, that's information. When you tell them about the restaurant owner who was about to lose everything because of a tax mistake and how one simple strategy saved his business, that's transformation. In other words, every story has a point and every point has a story. Let me show you exactly how this works with a real example. First, the old way, pure information. Business owners often struggle with cash flow management. Poor financial planning can lead to business failure. It's important to maintain adequate reserves and monitor your expenses closely to ensure long-term sustainability. Now, the storytelling approach. Last month, I got a call from Sarah, a cafe owner who'd been running her business for 8 years. She was crying on the phone because she just found out she had to close down permanently. And despite having customers every day and what looked like a successful business, she'd been slowly bleeding money for months without realizing. Her accountant had been filing her taxes, but never warned her about the cash flow crisis building up. So by the time she discovered the problem, she owed $73,000 in unpaid taxes and supply bills, and her business account had just $2,400 left. She was going to lose everything, her life's work, her employees' jobs, and the community gathering place she'd spent nearly a decade building. The reason why I'm sharing Sarah's story with you is because 60% of small businesses fail not because they don't have customers, but because they don't have proper financial oversight. Most business owners are so focused on serving clients that they don't realize they're heading towards financial disaster until it's too late. Do you see the difference there? Same information, but one makes you feel something while the other just tells you the facts. Because information is now a commodity. Everyone's parroting each other and saying the same thing over and over again. Your competitors can steal your strategies, copy your content and structure, and even replicate your presentation style. But those stories, those are uniquely yours. No one else can tell you the exact story of how you help that specific client solve that particular problem. And that's what separates you from every other expert in your space who's teaching similar concepts. Insight number 2 from our analysis revealed something that kills more YouTube videos than anything else. Now, if you think about the last time you walked into a bookstore, you see thousands of books. But what makes you stop and pick one up? It's the cover and the title of the book, right? But you don't just buy the book based on the cover. You flip it open and you look at the table of contents. You read the first few pages. You're essentially asking yourself, is this worth my time? Your YouTube hook, which is the first 30 to 60 seconds of your video, works exactly the same way. Your title and thumbnail are the book cover. They get people to pick up your video. But your hook, that's your table of contents. It's where viewers decide whether to invest their time or click away. So instead, you need to think like Netflix. So think about it this way. Why do you binge watch entire seasons of shows? It's not just because they're entertaining, it's because they've mastered what's called Freytag's pyramid. Think about Batman and the Joker. They don't just have one big showdown at the end. They play games with each other throughout the entire film. They're building tension, they're creating these mini climaxes, and they're always building towards that final confrontation. Now imagine watching a Batman film where nothing happened for 2 hours and then suddenly Batman and the Joker had their fight. You'd be bored out of your mind and probably leave the cinema. The other issue that kills videos is what I call the plot hole problem. Like, you know when you're watching a show and then suddenly the storyline starts to make no sense? Like you start to have like characters appear out of nowhere, the timeline doesn't add up, you're thinking, where is this going? That's exactly what happens when your video lacks clear progression. Your viewers need to see the path you're taking them on. Each point should logically lead to the next. Each story should build towards a bigger revelation. If people can't follow your logic, they'll click away. The solution is creating what I call progressive payoffs throughout your content. So let me give you a practical example. Let's say you're teaching about client retention, and instead of just listing strategies, you might start with a story about a client who is losing 60% of their customers each year. That's your first payoff, the problem they can relate to. Then you reveal the first strategy that reduced churn to 40%, second payoff. Then the breakthrough moment that got them 95% retention, major payoff. Each revelation builds on the last, creating momentum that keeps people watching. Insight number 3 from our analysis was the most surprising. It's what determines whether your viewers become customers or just disappear forever. Most business owners treat their call to action like an afterthought. They usually slap on a generic download my free guide at the end, and they wonder why nobody converts. And what I actually see is that a ton don't even have a call to action, and they assume that people somehow miraculously will figure out that they have something to sell. So instead, what actually works is this. You earn the right to make an offer after you've delivered value. That's why I place my first call to action right after the first or second payoff, usually around the 4 to 5 minute mark. And at that point, I've proven I can help them. And they're thinking, if this free content is this good, what's the paid stuff like? Your CTA must be a natural next step. If you just taught them about YouTube hooks, don't offer them a course on Facebook ads. Offer them the complete hook templates or a breakdown of high performing hooks in their industry. To give you an example, I was working with a tax advisor named David who was struggling to differentiate himself from the hundreds of other accounting channels on YouTube. So he'd been creating content for 8 months. Solid, informative videos about tax strategies, deductions, compliance issues, but he was stuck at the 200 to 300 views per video and he hadn't generated a single client. And he was pretty frustrated, and he spent hours researching the latest tax changes, creating these detailed explanations, and even using professional graphics. And the thing was, he'd watch other tax advisors get thousands of views and he couldn't actually understand what he was doing wrong. His information was accurate, his presentation was professional, but something wasn't clicking. So that's when we made the shift to storytelling. And instead of his next video being 5 tax deductions for restaurants, we restructured it around a story. David told the story of Marcus, a restaurant owner who came to him in January, absolutely panicked. Marcus had just received a tax bill for $47,000, money he didn't have, and his previous accountant had missed several key deductions. And Marcus was facing the possibility of losing his restaurant that he'd built over 15 years. Marcus was calling David at 7 p.m. on a Friday, voice shaking, asking if there was anything that could be done. David walked through exactly how he helped Marcus. He showed how one overlooked deduction, in this case equipment depreciation, that the previous accountant had calculated incorrectly, managed to save Marcus $23,000 alone. He explained how proper deductions also saved him another further $8,000. And he detailed how Marcus had been paying tax on income that should have been classified as cost recovery. So by the end of the consultation, David had actually reduced Marcus's tax bill from $47,000 to $18,000. Now the crucial part was how David connected it to the lesson. And he said, the reason I'm sharing Marcus's story with you is because most restaurant owners are overpaying their taxes by an average of $15,000 per year, simply because their accountant doesn't specialize in hospitality businesses. And that video got 12,000 views in the first week and actually generated 47 consultation bookings. Same information David had been sharing for months, but presented through a story instead of just facts. The story made people feel the pain of potentially overpaying taxes, demonstrated David's expertise in a way that a simple list of deductions never could. Now, if you want to see these principles in action and learn the complete system for turning your viewers into buyers with your YouTube channel, I've created a detailed breakdown of exactly how we've helped businesses generate over $24 million in revenue, and you can watch that video right here.